Okay, good evening, everybody. Dolo Domara Jibera Nobara Jibeke Tarvadon Tamjin Jembe Vartu Jubara Jiba Tamji Floy Jibe Manam Gadan Yambe Semchen Tamji Devatan Dumaratan Chen Yortu Lana Mebar Yandabra Gobe Chanchuren Boje Tobara Shai Dalai Domara Jibeja Nobara Jibege Darvadan Tamjin Jembe Vartu Jubara Jiba Tamji Jesu Jibe Manam Kadan Semje Tamji Devadan Durmadan Chen Yordu Lana Mibara Yantabara Zobe Chanjur Embo Che Tobara.
All other sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience. May they experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly will I establish them in a state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. Until I achieve enlightenment, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until death, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind.
저는 정말 저 시대에 전에 당가라서 다다 이 카르산테 담 마르와로 산지네 어드네 다 담아야 지송한 담아나 어제치네 다 드레타 소냠토 제야 시토다 더 나랑 들어봐.
So continue the teachings of Milarepa, and so we left off where Milarepa met with Marpa and received his oral instructions, and so that all is the chapter of where he accumulated merit.
Atene Yangre Chunki Gitu Damna Sematare Chuchon Nama Lame Chuntu La Shus Vedene Gala Lame Kere Bahi Drubachi Kasin Make Sova Yoji Da Sambo Jera Dana Poto Gom Chibi Kang Chokon Marku Gama Pen Jiborshane Mane Mazo Padu Nagubasin Seto and the Vashi Comment of Education Song Base was in the Chunki that Dama Top Sadula Mezati so Yamasan the Choser Gom Song is. 我这许多没来的别上啊，这那边在有人不对面是那样，那边人们要我去写了，从是人们要我去写，或者当年不写的了，光讲的真的，在秋空在那慢慢楼顶过光下的，秋空马早还是，听着光讲，那么就这些听着的意思。
So then again, the Rejungpa asked Milarepa, so then he said, so after you had received these instructions, what did you do? Did you stay a little bit longer with the Lama, or did you go into retreat? And the Milarepa replied that the Lama told him to make effort in practice and sent him off to retreat. And he sent him to meditate at the Dagnya cliff in Lodha. And in that cave, Milarepa was meditating with a butter lamp placed on his crown, and not without moving day and night, having it burn on his crown until the fire was completely extinguished. And actually, he spent 11 months in this meditation.
我真的那么也明白，中国人有几上坡，那么那么从那个在当地我就这点出嘛也玩的怕卡拉比，这里不过去了，怕个人他们都有看到把上那年跑进去的莫去从那看到把说把这个一样的没看一遍中国，他们那不过也嘛不忙方面弄些就，也嘛不别有咱们这个的用片那会用个有汤有过也嘛不拉去没从上上莫他变的人别去，切把他们偷东别去。头都没点的就说我们阿弥陀佛也给从中间呢，从也给每年把它当那么给些呢，那么给些呢，然后一跑你我说可以跟我们去个去当面嘛，从或者说些的工去，从或者过边去，那么给些呢不当嘛，那给些上年跑，现在个那落后接修接种的那么这个一些新帮啊，绿帮么种的，每起码筹备他妈绿建国那个吧，也那边吧的，比如说。我现在当你妈在，那么就在上边马路也没有你错，可能国家在有几上坡上去的，在上是，他马路去在上啥，像那么就在啥，两节个地的，两套也不接，我觉得是呢，就让看着从什么的，起落学是啦，上是，起落有没有那提后过的也铺嘛，上是提后过也嘛铺就是呢，我讲知道了。对，不过也不嘛，从最后不过也嘛，不的，真的他，马上的事是的，真的他的，他开始他那个，对用当面他们用的，他说是讲不过也用嘛，让他点点的是，嘛到行子，看见我们就第四那他的，那么头都不控制啥子用这个的，我怕什么东西，他是。يوم كثير يقول يا إنسان سيبارسون当然年头过出多起从是年头过出多起呀这起其他国家说这也那对美国是那多些那也是他们来美国传播是
So he sat there meditating for 11 months, and after 11 months Marpa came together with his wife, bringing supplies for a Ganachakra feast offering. And Marpa said to Milarepa, so now you have meditated here for 11 months, you must have gained some realizations and experiences, so share them with me. And so first tear down the closing of your cave and then come out and we talk. So first, as Milarepa started tearing down the door, he felt quite reluctant since he has been in there for so long. But then the Lama's wife came and asked if he was coming, and he said, "I cannot tear down the door." And she said, there's nothing wrong, it's okay, because in the Vajrayana, this is also an auspicious connection, which is considered very important. And on top of that, the Lama also has a quite hot temper, so you don't want to mess up this auspicious moment. So then she tore down the door for him, and Milarepa went out and talked to Marpa about his realization and his experience during the retreat. And that is when he sang his first song, which was an offering of the 7 branches.
마당 되게 농고라 나서 주변 고동에 잡아 주지 폴로라 제 농조도 그 야단 되게 나 주주 상양 제 나나기 또 담배 주지 지동들라 자동 예매 zonandu 오세주 그 남가라 세메데 묘미 바라히 기자 군라 제반제 연주미 주그 토란두 주인 다 바라네 메조데메 다메 주메 류성선 이베 임제남이 샤란두 지제 두베제 남지 가힌조 베 루메조 고당지 바탐지 la so mi ku be cha ni kan da me sam ji tu chu be yo ji ji yo na da lu ji ra tu di kwa sam ji so ra ya so nam ku na ji chu jin ko lo go ro tu do ro ko ma thong ba ra tu ne na ma sho su do ro ge so sam ji tu mo te da ra ya na du ba mo tu so ne ga ji shu dong la ma do jian chang ye de mi be ke yang mi yang zi dang ji bian chen na ba ga ba tu ge chen mi ji ji je la ba ga jing ko ba mi be ne tu ko ba mi be ga di la de ne ba da la tu ko yu nem to nem tang to hua yung zi yu ba ran bu la ne tu chu ni ge就说没别人年龄的这样些是他年了对吧是陪呢真的咱年多是陪高的他年多的看不开始呢他那么要么你不在多几强也没那么要么你不突击起没别给咱年多是不进真的要不头年多起写他是不能被从大噻
So he offered a song of the 7 branches, and then following that, he began sharing his realization and experience. And so he started this kind of speech of sharing with saying that I'm going to, whatever experience I have gained, it is the activity of the Guru who is indivisible from the Buddha Vajradhara.
我他妈买了一件对这点点中意去对别那米下查对这那把些不然基本的说那么些扬州亚人说那么些3万多吧那么些天桥对之前当另外的个做办公桌这边那这因别扬州嘛都3万点对嘛的年长的那新的看见见把人把可他可可从在那个说他妈买了的呢但对这说点点中意穷人是的呢但那米下查给旅游的穷人是那说我下查旅游的那些事儿，咱记得去了。我在兄弟里头，说那么件事扬州呀，他把这边给他村长的事，他说那马啥的，这个马应该送着呀，我那这样掐的，我是你块钱走了。我在扬州满洲3张证子，他掐的，我是那时候开钱不多，我说旅游别开钱不的事，要旅。我在扬州满洲3张掐，对嘛，点的事，我咱对嘛点的事，点的事呢，他把这边。他说他们前面空房这边是两年要过去呢，对嘛？这这样去来吧，上街这边来说吧，对嘛？第二现在他这个忙不在起，每个忙不在起，那年双双嘛见着呀。我这年看心头钱吧，你把高兴的，我是他谈不起就够了。
So he said, what I have understood is that the samsara, the 12 links of interdependent origination, arise from the fundamental cause of ignorance, which leads to a body comprised of flesh and blood. And so then in this way, the 12 links proliferate in samsara. And within that, for those who possess merit and who wish to attain liberation, this body of flesh and blood, this support, can become a ship to attain freedom. But then for those with negative karma who engage in much wrongdoing, then this very body, this support, is an evil support that drags one down into the lower realms. So he said that in this human existence, we are at a crossroads, like a boundary between going up and going down. So this human existence can either be an excellent support to attain liberation, or it can be an evil support that drags one into the 3 lower realms.
yang ke jansu bandi tumara yin bando bara manya bar ke ne ka yin ba so ne ka ma nga lam lam ne 我真的得了3.6年那么工作中的吧，现呢，我这那面开中的，他就从开朗呢，他们这慢下去啊，这开心不明白，我从上不是。
And so then he continued on, and so he said that, so not then recognizing that the ocean of suffering and samsara, he sought refuge in the 3 jewels, first in the Guru, because it was the kind Guru who gave him the path. So he sought refuge in the Guru and in the 3 jewels, and then trained properly in the discipline of the individual liberation. And he had, in this context, realized that the Guru is the cause of all benefit and happiness. And for this reason, it is a very important, essential point to follow the commands of the Guru precisely, and in this way maintain the Samaya purely.
真的他我这几天就是你个吧，当去完嘛，他来军队苦别年没说上把茶的上边路上嘛，你把苦年苦吧来茶完都别上把来点的，说他东吧，说看路嘛些点过这点事业当着话这那点别开这个两天这边开两边那边没得去上过当你们开的你们去学去呢，让一点让这些点从头你的话听面或者身边同的苦吧，就是为听都别强求什么头几年前面这几参几天弄的，我把 Tijan semdi barayin ba ko la stati treda tenjor ni ga ba se meta kurbe nyeme lejumde kurbe nyeme de ko son sto ya bu nyamla chine so yul je le chine ne rama mi le se ko nyamla ya chi ya zonju chi tu ya ola se chine tene wa tel den da den da so tar ko lomba je ko shore so tar se na ge tu no da ba genya la so tar la ge da jamro don ba se chi di na pe so tar no cha khyo sare wa ten du de sa yin no no这样让几波新人这起码都是讲的是强调性技能强理解这种开心不一吧这种过程强理解的行动强理解性的给我个人现在行动我把起呀我这个行动我把起呀我这说他过程是吧
And so then he continued and said that, and also I have understood the difficulty of obtaining a precious human body and the nature of death and impermanence, the nature of karma and the suffering of samsara. And having realized these, he said, I could not help but be diligent in practice, in striving for liberation. So also he said, I realized that these individual liberation vows are the foundation of all practice. And so here with the individual liberation vows, we these refer to the vows of a lay person or also ordained vows, and also the refuge vow. It belongs to the individual liberation vows or pratimoksha vows. And then after having realized that, he continued, however, it is not enough to only wish for one's own liberation, but it is also necessary to generate a mind of bodhicitta, of love and compassion that wishes for the liberation of all other beings. So therefore, whatever virtue, whatever merit is created, it must be dedicated for the sake of sentient beings according to the Mahayana vehicle.
Then Daniel Lam Te Bon, Tiba Chimbo Lam Juba, Dama, number of here, so let me do this Lam Ju, the other number Tabachibal, Lamatini, Dembala, one here, number Tabachuga, some down to Batapita, the Amba, one Shiba, some Motavala, one Batatu Gomber. What in it? Tati Lam Tiba maybe Lam Tapan, etene. That was number Tabachin, Tigon, the Lamatini, Dembala, once there was once choice on it. Or down to let into go to this, down to Bachine. The ones the other, some of Davala once, that's not some of that to be actually one should to do. Some of Dawa once, was it to do this, on this. Tazo Gomba and Bagom de Tians, and sing it to 2 more and consider down into 1 beat. So what in the Gomne, Sajerem Las also Gomne, or in it, sing it that's that 2 more Kaza Dami, but that's Surya. So based on the Chigore shows that is the Lucas on what.
So then he continued and said, so therefore, one must abandon the paths of the lower vehicles of the Shravakas and the Pratyakas. And then, having cultivated bodhicitta, one must seek a qualified guru who can impart on one the profound empowerments, the 4 initiations. And so then he said, first, in order to engage in the practice of the Vajrayana and the generation stage practices, first one, according to the vehicle of the dialectics or the reasoning, one first must set out and realize the meaning of selflessness in a person. So I realized that this is that one needs to understand this as a basis.
Then that's the ma the long time recovery, Ninka, Bed on Junsen to make one as it. Da money, Bala Kansa Theatre, Kansa, da money, but Simeon Banjo, Junsen to make one a sharp base here and for you, Chin, Sentiment, on the road and Tabaswa, Tiamas, So Young, Ranke, Mekiba, Shenjetun, the go back to my Shineba in Sewater. Just on that long repercussion, Zeona, the Kansa, that set money. The Kansa da money was the Doming on the Samyabara Shana. Or Tene Namtopa Juchi, that's a Chinese secret, San Domino near Sonse. The Tanza das, a Kansa das, a true das, and needs to get one as well. Or the Kansa das at the Jitanga set in the recovery. Or true das and a yes at another Yanziba, said Dani potentially knowing yes, Sedan. Tange Jala and want to think Lavia Soravati, true das, what in put that's a same when you so Nas as it in the among yes, as it one nation say there is a dollar stand or what's so many do it, he not so same that money be sent, that same the pardon be that is a sharding, that she know, or this is an eight or Sarwa.
So then he said, so then on the basis of scripture and logic, one first understands that self in a person cannot be found. And so then one must rest within this state of selflessness of the person. And then resting within that state without developing any thoughts is what is called calm abiding. So there's generally 2 kinds of self or selflessness. There is the self or selflessness, the self of a person, and the self of phenomena. The self of a person is the I, and the self of phenomena in the context of the I is the mine, like, or my, like this is my object, this belongs to me, or this is what I have said, like mine something that belongs to me. So both can actually not be found. One cannot find this I, and one cannot find the me or what belongs to this I. It all is empty of self-nature. And so Milarepa here says that when one lets the mind rest within this empty state of the self, then one attains the state of shamatha or calm abiding.
我真的呈现讲的情况说，马上话他这块俺东把哪了，让你把这了都没见，那个谁的吧，现在看伢们他同这种说的结果，他同谁的嘛，那么前头我这伢们去的情况的，莫怪就是往马上话去，现在这块很俺东或者情况看的，情况真的他这我没把伢，莫怪真的出来是他没把这，那这边的这我没把我这说他情况是说的，这块很俺东西呀。我的是要针对起过是俺东西呢，要是我说他去针对巧的呢，我听到在其中就这样一哪了让一米八十，他现在热了多块米八十，我这样热多块米的，他现在那种的第一是通过的，我这现在看样子，现在看样子就是当中自己说的是，当中我呢这些长嘛，说结果就了下个样的是干来好好的是，中多。
So then he continued and said that one then must maintain a state of mindfulness without any mental thinking or torpor, which means that so the mental thinking is a lack of mental clarity, and torpor is more like almost like an apathy, where you just basically have not much feeling at all. So there's just this blank kind of this blank and a dull state. And so he says when this happens, then one must revitalize the clarity in the mind. And when clarity arises, one should see it as appearing, being clear, yet lacking any self-nature, any true nature. And so then when one continues to rest within this clear and thought-free state, one begins to see the nature of the mind. One gains the first experience of the nature of the mind, which is an experience of calm abiding. So in general, it is said that it is difficult, because this moves into the practice of insight then, but this still is not something that can be called as a genuine and an actual practice of insight or vipassana. And so Milarepa said that he believes that only once one has attained the first bodhisattva bhumi, one will attain the state of vipassana.
我真的没把当的那么把它那么多去把它现在现在给你们还可上通那从就嘛当光别给打上面你不看阳明多那现在上不俺东把它这边说写了什么就把他这上通错把它西边他没他们认为给了这边成给些都嘛着把什么现在说成绩当这没看起我他这两个在这趟去呢这现在在广东的真的现在是在广东在这娘们在他从中央中在整个些中央中这么大用口啥的我这时候在英国是要嘛的是大上的可能娘光别大上是什么在英国看也有嘛的我等于现在他上报说过没有他安动的这是可以安动的他听出去过的是说写了这叫吧去他写了叫吧做进在他打他的是打这大概是拿三给他能做的南托的南瓦的南托这时候让一毛多吧这是九百七给的话这是为哪的打起钱呢这怕几百起点配表这说的我这里这钱呢南九钱呢真的他们多把钱啊他没他们把钱的中多
And so then he continued, Milarepa, and he said that then as a result of shamatha practice, various kinds of visionary experiences may arise, such as deities and so forth. And however, Milarepa said, clairvoyant abilities and so on. However, Milarepa said that these have no essence whatsoever. They are merely signs of shamatha meditation, but they have no essence. And when these arise, then one should again revitalize one's clarity with discriminating wisdom, recognizing that whatever arises may arise, but lacks any true existence. And so therefore he says that this discriminating awareness wisdom is really indispensable for the attainment of insight or vipassana. 我真的在这种多真的那个别的
Nimbo Kaya, or Takilan Zabi, Timki, Oma Tandras, Sinikine, Hine Gombala, Sete Semi Kanchi, Tamji, Dimoto, Ningi, Chamni, Gundun, Rova, Gun, Che, Gigi, Hiano, Himiba, Simti Simba, Dawa, number Tabi Mimi to John Tama, Hien to Nova Monamji, and Deba Mimi, on the Chiba, Lam Tamchi, Kenchoiba, Colas, what an this kitchen Bodoa. Karzana when you do Simchi Tambazo, what I can Senchi, Senata, Senchi, and National also dance, Chayatala, Senchi, and what Semis and another they mix it to me, but not Semis. What a curriculum, I think water, Chamni, to Chine, what an it is Kari Chavachina, Simchi, Zesing, or Chancho, and Zesing Bashi, or the Tawa number Sabas, that Mimi can Tawa number Sabas, the Mayimba, so my English in Yamnachigo. Or the Dawa number Saba, mimicking on the junglers, or the Tamating over the Molam so Jane Deb, or the over the hung over the Lajera mimicking over Jane Deb, mimicking over Jane Deb, mimicking over Jane Deb, or the Luciva, the Lamna, such short, but give course on the
And so then the next thing that he said is actually quite important. So he said that he understood that these practices are just like the steps of a ladder, like foundational. But then what's important is that whatever practice one engages in, one must first develop the motivation of love and compassion. That must precede all practice. And so that is the perfect preparation of the correct motivation, that is love and compassion. And then with that, one engages in the practice of shamatha. And so there is the shamatha with characteristics, which is basically the shamatha with the support. And then there is the shamatha without characteristics, where there is no specific support. And so in all these practices, they must be based on love and compassion. And then while one is doing the practice, it is important to rest within the authentic view without distraction. So the natural state of the mind without distraction, a meditation that is free from any reference point. And then at the end, one should seal this practice through dedication prayers. So these 3 points are the supreme among all practices.
Then that is on the Medobala, San Kovaki, Mepemba, Sagos, Tony Dopala, Kova Mecho, Gomgo, Kolas, or Netaki, Maso, they don't need the Ramla Tombola. The main Kovas and Finkmaris and Yamachigos, Mother Chogo, Jedodi, one thing, Kalas Mambo, the main Labna, Torno, the Drona, Pentohaya Marista, 10 years, then Kalashimbo Casino, main Labna, and the Pento Chogo Jara Penkmari. 我听对他整个就去年来呢，通过在说说要不拖呢，年来嘛进呢，说说就直接通过嘛的是，我咱都是这是开心不多啊。
And so then he goes on saying that I have understood that the knowledge of food does not help a starving man, but he needs to eat the food. And so similarly, to understand the meaning of emptiness, one must actually practice. So for example, if someone is really hungry and you just tell them what kinds of foods there are and you give them a whole list of delicious foods, that will not help the starving man. However nice the food may be, if he doesn't actually eat it, it will not fill his belly. And so similarly, even if you have very high Dharma instructions, if you do not actually put them into practice, then they are quite useless to you.
我真的去把这两种多被他不来接受的早上你来移民美国，后来说，但当中都要了接受了，但是这娘们嘛，但这接受现在他推上走到去了，娘们嘛几月那考了，早上你不做那么早呀的。这把讲下，听别从我们看出去过的是，看的是那等个说，这个用那上接触个嘛了，说那嘛上那上接触个嘛了，我这人对这早上你不进的娘多些呀，空别了，偏多有啥的，我在这边我许多是。
So then he continues saying that, and so in particular, I understood that to realize Vipassana or insight, one must make effort to purify obscurations and accumulate great merit, also in between meditation sessions. And that's because if for as long as one has a lot of negativity, one cannot attain enlightenment. So without merit, one cannot attain enlightenment. One really makes an effort, an undistracted effort in merit and purification, then that will be conducive in increasing one's experiences and realizations.
La doni ta nyamni yomi nam wa shiba dang tu be zanga do je sikbe lama je be dawa yin ba kolas wa ta nyamni sena da yomi sena kar sena ti chama wa shibe ki thonda dong ta ti zanga do je sikbe lama ki zen ba dong ze yin ba question do os ta zong shan de sa ta ne man ti ne li strict ja kan ba.
So then he continues and he said that now I have understood that now the experience of emptiness and equanimity and the freedom from elaborations and conceptuality are the different stages of the path of Vajrayana, which all correspond to the 4 empowerments.
Lo jumi sa phe lo go sa sa wa je se di ro wa tan ru ta do la chung go go sem le gu na ma dong di chi sem le gu go sa sem le kha kan ru gu go san sa sem ko ti ga sha yang khare re sa chuan ro ge de sem so ya bo gang la sha so ya nyam le gang la sha chue ya de nyam le ya le ndo ma le de ya tha ba sam jin chen ma ro ya ke le sam bo sa ya wa tan ru xin le ta le gu go re wa te le gu ne Nawa don't these, and then Daman and Tom, I think Yamlan on Shago, good. Matos said that is hanging Gado Chadan Second Recomariste, and you could Yamlan on some Rangi Maroba, how come you're at it, Consul Water, what an idea, Nawa don't eat. What it Nawa don't eat Chigores, Chinu Tongi, Jinju Ronyo, so what Chinu Tongi, chill. 但些送了送上老当过的是，你嘛个就不忙忙去生活过些送了，没啥啥子，路出嘛到你嘛我就后来去上班的时候，然后现在些是，光叫种讲着讲着，意思那个大概现在其实我听着现在我听着现在在发起的用了啥的，可是呢，这是哪里的？去了俺们看在着地方搞发起在穷的哇，我听的这工作在在。 我现在些是嘛，现在嘛差的是，他我就是介绍的都他些从哪在地方搞，我写出半年送的人，你嘛我说Drupon一些我讲送的人，他咱们那些呀嘛，可是一些是那么做那全部的是，可是呢写出半年是的，我等于种多空，我等于种个的，对，我到等于那种强那个的是现在通过金融弱呢，金融弱我们是呢，他弱呢是啊，这可是呢，高度你过了几块的7-8元嘛，他弱呢的。 那的대도 니는 체파용 다시 로뇽 봤어. 어제 신나다 시바로 뇽선은 단 친치바데라 신나는 잡고 말. 제치니 로뇽도 그래. 어제 뒤에 로뇽 나사요나 나사코랑 니랑 힘으로 와서 로뇽 손들이. 어제 인도 로뇽 보레스. 어제 꾸딘 어제 송한데 로뇽네스. 어제 냠나 진짜 치고 정도. 이나 당하랑서 디사 다디 수고마데 총 다데 오면도 되는 나면 소자지 스칼레 피지컬도 어떤 초보도 스타 상부 칼라스다네 티지엘에 다도 지엘 지나서 되면 아주 티스칼레 하고도 되나 말해.
Yeah, so then he continued on saying that so in order to realize all this, I will mortify my body, meaning that I'm going to work hard. I'm going to endure any difficulty that necessary with my body. And then he said, I will deprive myself of food. So meaning that we shouldn't pay too much attention to good food, like eating delicious food and so on. So Milarepa himself actually, he probably ate only nettles, subsisted only on nettles for about 9 years. So that is no, of course, very, very difficult. And so, let's see, and then he says, I will bridle my mind. And so that is meaning that I'm going to place my mind in a state of practice. I'm going to discipline my mind. And that is, you are forming a habit of positive karma in order to attain the state of liberation and omniscience. So you bridle the mind, or you kind of make the mind pliable or workable. And then next, he said, and so then whatever arises, whatever I perceive, I will not be controlled by it. Whatever arises is merely an appearance, lacking any true existence from its own side. And even if death were to happen, still I will recognize everything that arises as having one and the same taste. I will practice with whatever arises. So things having one and the same taste means that so for example, happiness and suffering are all the same. There's no difference between happiness and suffering, or being alive or being dead. It is the same, or being healthy and sick. It is all the same. And whatever arises, I will engage in practice. So now, for now, if you think about it from our own perspective, now for us it's a little bit difficult now for us to say that. So I'm not, for example, the old meditators in Tibet, they would stay in their cave until they die, and they would not, even if they were sick, they would refuse any medicine, and they would just seek refuge in the three jewels. And actually, they said that if one practices in that way, one is less likely to encounter obstacles, because if we go to the hospital every time we feel a little bit sick, then we can run into all kinds of obstacles just by doing that. And the yogas of the past have all had the attitude of, if I die, I die. If I don't die, I'm even better. But if I die, then I'm leaving this life having spent my entire life in meditation. And actually, Drupan's retreat master, Drupon Rinchen, also had said that. He said that it's a great merit for someone to be able to die in retreat. If one's life exhausts while one is in practice, that is a great merit. And so then there is no fear of death. Everything becomes the same. So for us now, this is of course a little bit difficult because we seek relief for every little ailment that we have, and nowadays especially it's difficult for most people just to make this effort in practice, because we always find some kind of excuse. For example, like, I'm a little bit hungry now, so first I eat a little bit and then later I'm doing my practice, or right now it not really a good time, so I'm doing it later. So this is basically how we are kind of plodding along these days, but so it's difficult for us to really make this kind of effort like the masters of the past.
That's it. That good Kurma maybe Lama Yam Chong to Sandy Kenyan Ponga Majida, Drupan Yamlan, Chisin Soy Part and Boo, Tato Topa, the Omi Chuji, Podant Boos, or that's Lama Yamlan, something Mados, Drupan Yamlan Choban Bujis, Chisin Soy Part, Tato Topa, the Omi Chuji and Kuji, certain wash now.
So then Milarepa continues and said, now I have not come into the presence of the Lama and the lady, his wife, who are incredibly kind, to just present them a material offering. Instead, I offer them the offering of my practice, and which I will continue to do for as long as I live. And my final realization I will present to you in the Pure Land of Akanishta. And so then he sang a song.
도전 장전 라마라 상제 당매지 비용 자세 주에 도나나 고토이 유효와 생존이 그거 고로 상태도 예배 중나서 바라서 나야 주신주 바라서 예 제치제 투제 진고는 전함사 세는 주반에 달로 배만 같이 년도 추종 주반의 질량 고다 만지에 주반저 바준 주반다르 진바다 주제 졸라 펜바르고 반치보 지나서 바라서 서와타탄 거시 돈다 아다 이렇게 라마야면이 라스트 이제 마토다 로컬 도스면은 sobar zors tin chuna yi to nyamne gang sharo chi so de nyamne tendu kando na te sange ke lama yamyo kadi den nyamne kharda na tin kadi khuta me de te den tin ge droba nyamne choba jun luji so de o droba nyamne chin tar ma chi wa chi ji tar chi san de drobe nu ten droba sin chan tam ji de pyan ba pyan ya tendu mi tumo na ro chi sa
So then he sang the song, saying that first requesting the guru and the lady Dagme to forgive all his mistakes in practice, and then and to remedy them according to the Dharma. And he said, your kindness is so vast. It cannot be repaid in a material way. Instead, I am offering this ongoing gift of my practice until the practice is brought to completion and then results in the service to all sentient beings.
Oh, xie xu la me xie ne fu chu se zam re ya re de chong yang chong do ni de yong jie xie ne fu chu de la da bu ke nge hun de la de zam yong we ke lo so tam ba yu jie zong ne ji ji zong ne ma de ne la ma yang se kan de chong na hin da ja de la gong so wa de ne ma re sa nge xie re ba na chong do o yong ke da nge hun de lo to ne ru yo re sa o te lu sia de kong na ba ni ke be ni wo da chi song se ne se le kong ni ma sam kan ke se on nge ma na da de chi par sam pro dis.
So then at the end, and then the Lama said, I'd hoped, that's what I've hoped from you. And all of my hopes that I had in you have been fulfilled. Now, this son of mine has so much determination. So the lady and the Lama both were extremely happy. And then they left to their residence, and Milarepa continued his retreat as before.
Thế là làm vừa sáng chỗ là rồi chuyện để mà đang có cái trong hồ sơ thì bên cái món bên trên nó rồi đã mà trong mà có vào cái đấy đã chỗ rồi này đã quý thì nó rồi về thì chúng để thì chỗ nó thì phê bình cái sáng qua chỗ bên thì mà làm thì mình có sao mà thay cái nó ra rồi về trên thằng gì bà mình mà thằng mà ra xem chỗ cái vào chỗ YouTube con bé sang chế về đó sang chế vào là cho ra trên bộ thằng chỗ rồi đã mà thành đồ gì cái mà có mà sang chế và chế bảo bảo thằng जो के दमा थे मतलब कि सेरे बे जमनो दां बे मे थे तारो मे चे जी तो बे कारो नं chen ना दुजे फरची मे के खानी ना नमा तो सम सांजे तब मे chen बा मे बे कि मा थो बा जे जां मे बे या के सांजे तो बा दा मा चे दा मा के za तो yi ji yo bara ju jalan कारो नं chen ना chong जो जो को nya ma ne da de la me chong de chong ne la me ke wa ta da da la me chong chong ne sta 근데 니마 말와라 창조 반나 당가서 사자 창조의 프리뷰 만남나제 나로 다 스토리스 다 되고 싶어요 말스 어쨌든 다 미라레파다 냠나치도 카로 마제 농태한다 다 카로 이미 다 히어서 마제 프미제 농태한스 총네더네 지난주는 내가 다 고미아데 차자 신보다 나로 주로 남아한 도스 계획이나 고마고 포바창 요 담바조서 템만도세 남아 휴세 어떤들 라우스몬 스테 다큐 로자 마르송 다 라메케 참만 챙게래 다 라메 참만 챙게래 다 파티 인다 칸로농天이 마시에치네 남아제 휴니 야사레 상태 그시 남 칸로농天이나 포바 총조 쇼강사 근데 남에사 마르송 이스 지후고 예이디
And so then he, so the Lama left home, returned to his home. And so around this time, the Lama traveled to the northern region, the Uru region in Tibet. And so one night when he held a feast offering at that place, Dakini appeared to him, and she deciphered a symbolic teaching given by Milarepa, but that symbolic teaching was not understood. Milarepa did not understand the meaning of the symbolic teaching. And also at that time, he didn't know that this woman that appeared is actually Dakini giving a prophecy through signs. And so then one night he had a dream, and in that dream, Milarepa now had a dream, and in that dream, a woman appeared, and she gave him a prophecy, and said that you already have the instructions on Mahamudra and the 6 yogas of Milarepa, but you do not yet have a certain special instruction on the ejection of consciousness and the transference. And through this instruction, you will become a Buddha in a single instant. You should request this instruction. And so, Milarepa was puzzled by this dream, and he thought that this woman might have been Dakini giving a prophecy, but or maybe it was an obstacle. He didn't know. So whatever it was, there's nothing that he thought Malama wouldn't know. So then he went to see Milarepa to share his experience. So he took down the entrance of his cave again and left his retreat.
Sometimes Madola Party Use only Dala Minda Shake Self Party in Luntian in Mahi Kede Luntian in Achunju La Chubi Yogi Gompa Show Netin and Karun Bando Maja Garden Sorion du Benjan Rotu Chunju Kizundu Shego Subamado Shu Subamado Japan La de Zorbe Bono Nitan J Chunju Kibecha Mani Pova Ixamatu Chongwe Nan Chunju into J Making Uru Chanjo Das in Amishu Gubando Vision Dama J machine do shouldn't draw us draw was on shoes. What in it? Marwa, Karis, Chun San Tambo Maduta Party, you get and Karja and Silau thing. Malamtus Chons, the country, but Luntian in the Party Hakomas, Kando Luntian in the Tunjo, it's not what easy to say. Marwa, Gompa, they show songs, then Kando Luntian in those started. What then Kando Luntian in those things? Jagat from the Tunjo Gor and Naru Ketcha, you only change meadows. What they call them, you betcha some law initiative, Povan, the Mambo, those Tina, Chonjo Chuni Masons. What thing, because the Chanjo, the competitive, you say, dash, that's it, Chonjo Chia Gush, the dance at this. Tanga Jagan Roji is on board.
And so then he went to see Milarepa, and Milarepa then said to him, so why are you here? It's while you're in a strict retreat, if you leave while you're in a strict retreat, there's a danger that obstacles may arise. And then Milarepa said, he explained his dream of this woman that appeared, and he said, I don't know if this was an obstacle or in fact a prophecy, but if it was a prophecy, then I have come to request you for the instruction on the transference. And so then Milarepa reflected for a moment and said, that is in fact a prophecy of a Dakini, because when I had returned from India, Milarepa did speak about the transference, but I do not remember requesting it from him. So I will look at my text from India. Let's see if we can find it. And so together they searched through all the texts, trying to find a text on the transference, and they didn't find it. And so then finally the Lama Milarepa said, so there are many signs for me to go to India to receive, to find these teachings. So he was getting ready to set off for India.
Well, Dama Gio Meshiba and those children rose, what the Dama Shimba you said, Hakumano, Roji Silawa.
And so he said, there may be another instruction as well that I do not yet have, so I will go and request these instructions.
我古南这边军山堂去碰那小大不就这大不马山呢，罗马那么这这个在如果在推进的在这个康就没加干了，那如就把它也把头呗，说了嘛头边说了呢，现在蒙古这一边农田可能特别是这边农田可能头呢做吧的那新那在那些些就这的，后来还得光把电厂的普把成就当啊，属于边前那路那就这样呢，这可能在大上前把因为就这样呢，农田群众别看在大上。给前把满意大了农田群众们，那给老马土把个些我些有本很多农田群众拉去边是我的，他们把钱了路给我吃，他们都在老马上面可惜了，你看马上是，但不过他们在起呢，在个旅康，在普罗康是，那都是在忙不了，是吧？我这西的这家干着送是的，那路怕就把也上那路学什么玩意儿，这说话大的这也蛮那路几人是那些的。我真是觉得那等着忙不着呢，那种节日，那种节日里头不来还是的了，人家学的，的就你，那么那就那农田穷说还有钱是了，说是，等你老马土把个，俺了农田穷嘛，说是你老马土把个是吧？就有是，才能看到农田穷都是，我真是，那种还学的是。
And so at that time, Marpa was already at an advanced stage, and these disciples tried to dissuade him from going to India, but he insisted on going, and he exchanged all of the offerings that he had received from disciples for gold, and then set off for India to look for Naropa. Naropa had already departed then in the previous area he was staying at, and Marpa was praying fervently to meet with Naropa, and eventually they met in a forest, and Naropa invited him to his hermitage in Pulahari, and Marpa requested the instructions on transference. And then Naropa asked him, did you think of this yourself, or did you receive a prophecy? And Marpa responded, neither. I did not think of it myself, nor did I receive a prophecy. But I have a disciple called Tubaka, who received a prophecy of a Dakini.
我真的我查的起，是我查起我们本来的基本看了你嘛，下班这些有帮都在家听我家的，像说我们被毛绒了，听我土巴个一些吧，那基本土巴个也看了你嘛，下来被土巴个一些吧，基本在那家在那些种，见苦苦这呢，这边两种不苦苦把两种这边加个那个，这场子辛苦去做，所以我可把点种就他样，后来还得这场辛苦苦去做了，可把苦给有帮都是。中多，我当时我们本来的我查的基本上是土巴个卡了你嘛下班那些这有啥的，现在的自己是懂的，我自己懂的，在下爬天毛在这里，那路土爬起的，咋子先从嘛的，后来还是咋子先从嘛把火嘛，学了开学成率，穷的中多。
And so Naropa then said how marvelous. So in this gloomy land of Tibet, there is a man like the rising sun over the snow mountains. And then he sang a song of prayer, folding his hands in prayer. So the praise to Milarepa then goes, in the gloomy darkness of the north lives the one called Tubaka, like the sun rising over the snows. To that man I bowed down. So then he bowed his head 3 times in the direction of Tibet, and all the trees of Pulahari actually bent in the same direction of Tibet. All the trees and plants on the mountains, everything seemed to bend toward Tibet.
我今天看着给研究他们那做不的那。变现那路，但这边马路去下车路，有他妈种呢，这两趟去现在人民弄点把它后头点拍，那下车，我当时的，这马路去研究他们做那的，他做的研究他们的那样式的，我这说起真的那路去他点这提高马路，就在马路这就开始是一档子下车了哇。一档子下车的，但我那些那么下车的，那么下嘛是一档子下车的，这真的是超松是。我等的求从的在光去，没就在他点把培养在其他有什么的， 我这些他们都得写，就有的话，这别要不就有啥的，这当马路这些忙不多，他们都得写，这要不就有啥的，这写起来特别嘛吧。我的你那这全球特别的人国语言人国那个的是，我在那路可能看特别的是。
So then Naropa imparted all the instructions of the oral lineage of the Dakinis to Marpa. And then after that, he interpreted a few signs that appeared, and so that interpretation was based on the way Marpa prostrated himself. So at that time, the Yidam deity actually appeared directly in space. And instead of prostrating to the guru, Marpa prostrated to the Yidam deity. And therefore, Naropa said there is a slight like inauspicious here, something inauspicious here. And so generally, you've had, as a result of that, your family line will be short. Also referring to Marpa's son Dharmadota. So Dharmadota was one of Marpa had many sons, and Dharmadota was a very special, very unique son. And Dharmadota actually passed away at a quite young age. And it is said that it is due to this kind of inauspicious connection based on the way Marpa had prostrated at that time.
这他这里这种说真的强这路去点点这他们都得贵也是咯，他们家做派上，老出不为去这把不老不确备去他们老妈会钱，他们接去把他们人不接，这推送上街的，这的不大时间他们就做那些嘛，做他们本地的为去他个酒店把人不接他他乱就，当下他们啦对家吃呢，去他完就农田的那么学为，他们现在变成那路去回去，没那么他点点俺你把因为个酒去点把啦变成那路去农田上坡有被，几乎了。那么那不学中呢，真的不讲，那么那么说呢，不那么上坡个中的，农田不管的嘛，就个俺那个前些个么那么中途那么也冲突不了，我真的他是他们都得是冲十对真的，那了这个呢在上嘛在说反正说是几个的，然后这样子，但是这推送上街的真的，他俺说那托马松是，这马托对真的，他马我把这点把这个酒店把看住冲击的。现在你要马上修的，但那么我跟我那强度是，这些马上开始种是那个变成那路，感觉点把有人不那特别是农田要不有是，我这那路变成这马上点这是俺年的是，现在就经常说，场面马上来搞说是种是这种就是呢，马上场嘛马上要不穷多是，农田跑马上小穷嘛，种是呢，他马上来把这个钱去，你马上穷种是那种的。
And so then later, Marpa's son Dharmadota did pass away, just as foretold. And then an offering ceremony commemorating the death was held. And some of Marpa's disciples then said to Marpa, your son was like the Buddha of the Buddha of the 3 times. And now he can no longer work for the benefit of all us sentient beings. And also you, the Lama, are already of quite advanced age. So therefore, please give us an instruction on how in the future the Kagyu teachings should be spread. And then the Lama replied, I'm a follower and a descendant of Naro Benchen's lineage. And I have received many omens and signs and dreams. Also, I have Naropa's instruction or kind of prophecy with regard to the Kagyu teachings. So therefore, my disciples, go watch your dreams. So then all of the disciples, the senior disciples, watched their dreams and reported them. And everyone had some dreams, and some were quite good dreams, but none of them had a prophetic dream. And at that time in Milarepa, he had a dream of 4 great pillars, which he described in a song.
真的，他告诉学术心里有啥的，真的他得是光加其他的哇。真的他考上了做新的个第三的上了做学员吧，他只当他没来的培种从他新的个苗子的， so what thing enjoy ke some not the disclosure is karsananga tenjo ni ga wan dong se mata le jun de so disclosure so china nyamne zun du chi ya le pengere so lo do shi se ke lo do shi wa yu di shi din nyamne chi ya pengere wa ten du我这边头先不解有的，我真的你嘛大概就恐怕的，个当恐怕是说别总就学我前多，是老多学我是就接，特别像没他的发现，来就这做一切的人的话，我这个当这些科学你嘛，这科学人在千万没他是就接呢，可的这样可能，那他没把东西买的，我这样可能这样可能你苦嘛了是吧？你苦嘛了是。我真的科学人好像在看到过他的，希望可能你们什么光的，但可能你们是就话见哈个，的没去见把东西，新鲜东啊是不是？什么当地的，我听着了，确实是吧？我听的，我这说的是。开心不啥的，他才的那的比从前面的强求什么都钱呢？那现在光过个，但现在可长个做电钱过的，的需要啊，我在电钱过的其实它是电钱的，光的是那等人听着了是光想的可上听着了是光难这里，然后这个说你这个当个说那么忙不着求学的话，这样的，我现在先把这里面任务的看着工作那这个光难这里，这样说的是光比较意思。
So now it's time to do some meditation again. And so last week we did already speak about shamatha, calm abiding. And also today Milarepa spoke about calm abiding, shamatha. And as Milarepa had said, we heard in today's teachings that in order to develop shamatha, some renunciation is actually quite important. And renunciation arises when you understand the difficulty of finding a precious human body, and the impermanence of this life, karma, and the suffering of samsara. When you understand these, then diligence will arise in practice. So these four are called the four thoughts that turn the mind. And if you really understand them well, they will be a great benefit to your practice. And this is what all the past Kagyu masters, also the Kadamba masters of the past have taught. It is really through this understanding that they were able to persevere in the practice with so much diligence and determination, just like Milarepa, for example, or some of the past Kadamba Geshes. For example, there was one who had really understood the impermanence of life, and he, having really understood that, he was unable to sleep at night. Or somebody else had really understood the suffering nature of samsara, and he always cried. He was always sad because he always. So he was not. Yeah, he did not always cry. He cried a lot, but he made quite a dark face, like all the time. Basically, he never would smile or laugh, and that is because he was always thinking of the suffering of sentient beings. So that's why that's quite important to think about these. And also, as Milarepa has said, shamatha practice should be founded on love and compassion and bodhicitta. And so last week and before, we mentioned a few methods of practicing shamatha with support. So you can use any of these methods, or you might have received other teachings from different lamas before, other methods that you are more familiar with. And you can also use them. For example, you can also practice shamatha without a support and so on. So whichever one suits you the best. But now we're going to meditate for a bit. So we meditate.
dedication together.
Glorious, holy, venerable, precious, kind, root, and lineage Mamas, divine assembly of Yidams and assemblies of Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Yogis, Yoginis, and Dakinis, dwelling in the 10 directions. Please hear my prayer. May the virtues collected in the 3 times by myself and all sentient beings in samsara and nirvana, and the innate root of virtue, not result in the 8 worldly concerns, the 4 causes of samsara, roaming the earth as a Shravaka or Patika Buddha. May all other sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me and mine, obstructors who harm, misleading Maras, and the hordes of demons experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly attain unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. By the power of this vast root of virtue, may I benefit all beings through my body, speech, and mind. May the afflictions of desire, hatred, ignorance, arrogance, and jealousy not arise in my mind. May attachment to fame, reputation, wealth, honor, and concern for this life not arise for even a moment. May my mind stream be moistened by loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta, and through that may I become a spiritual master with good qualities equal to the infinity of space. May I gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra in this very life. May the torment of suffering not arise at the time of my death. May I not die with negative thoughts. May I not die confused by wrong view. May I not experience an untimely death. May I die joyfully and happily in the great luminosity of mind as such, and in pervading clarity of Dharmata. May I in any case gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra at the time of death for any Lord.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, teacher. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank